Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game Doomsday Bots. This was sent to me by DigiSprite and is designed by DigiSprite. Doomsday Bots is a 2 to 4 player competitive board game that brings together elements of card drafting, dungeon running, and player versus player combat. You and your fellow mad geniuses must scrounge for parts and assemble the best bots you can, then race each other to the top of the boss's clock tower. Work together or go it alone to defeat the boss, but only one can escape to victory with the highly coveted boss loot, a devastating Doomsday device. Let me show you how to play. So in Doomsday Bots, you are trying to go from the bottom of this tower to the top, fight the boss, get the boss loot, and come back. Now you can actually make this tower however you like, but they suggest in your first game just do a simple 2x5 tower like this. And then each player starts with 3 energy tokens. Now at the beginning of the game, everyone has 7 parts cards that they start to draft. So what you do in classic draft form, you choose a card, you draft it in front of you, and then you pass. And you do that until everyone has made their selection and continue until no cards remain. Then you do it again with 7 more cards passing anti-clockwise. So at the end, you will have 14 cards in your toolbox. And these are the parts you can use to build robots. Now, once you have the parts, then you can build your first bot. A bot may have a maximum of 1 head, 1 core, 2 arms, and 1 leg parts. So let's just show an example of what one could look like. So here's an example of one right here. It's got a head, a core, 2 arms, legs, and then a consumable. So your bot has 2 trunk slots you can use to hold consumable items. Whenever you get the boss loot, it goes up here. So that's my starting robot. Each robot has different stats on their parts. There's intelligence, which is the blue icon. So this is a +2 to intelligence. This is power, a +1 to power. And this is speed, +2 to speed. So your goal is to use your robot to get to the top of the tower and defeat the boss. So each turn you have 2 action points you can use. You have a maximum of 3 energy, and all actions cost 1 point. Some of the abilities let you use them as actions. We'll kind of go over some of those later. You can attack other robots, do a challenge in a boss room, you can move, you can pick up, and you can self-destruct. Play begins with whoever has the highest combined stats. So for my starting robot, it looks like, let's just pretend this robot goes first. So they could move 1 space into a room. Now, each room in the clock tower has an encounter that must be attempted upon entering the room. So this is Mecha Bees. It's a 15 speed roll. So let's see what happens. So my robot currently has a +2 modifier to speed. So I take my die and roll it. 16 +2, 18. I successfully passed the encounter. What happens in this encounter is if I successfully encounter, I place a trashed token in the room, and now it's an enraged queen intelligence test instead for whoever goes in there. And that was my first action, so I could, let's say, go up again to the rocket boot storage. This room is a 13 intelligence roll. This room isn't trashed. Pay 2 energy, move your bot 2 rooms, and trash this room. So I could move up faster if I use some energy. But first, let's see if I even pass the test. I have 3 intelligence boost, so I roll 11 + 3, 14. So I pass. So if I didn't pass, however, my bot would take 1 damage and my turn would immediately end. Every time you take a damage, you have to lose one of the parts in your robot. You can choose which part. However, if someone attacks you, then they get to choose the part. So I'd be like, okay, if I lost a part, I could just discard my... Actually, this one has to drop first because this Protectron arm, when your bot takes damage, this part must be the first to drop. So you drop the part into the room you're in. If you ever run out of parts, you blow up and you go back all the way to the bottom. And you have to construct a new robot with your robot parts in your toolbox. If you run out of parts, you just gotta run in unaugmented. So another action you can do is attack. So let's say I go into the same room as this guy and I attack. I choose which stat I roll with. Let's say I have, 3 boost in power. So I'm gonna roll, okay, so I have 12. Then the defender, they have +3 power. They rolled 18. Okay, around 15 plus 3, so 18. So if the attacker's roll is, or if the defender's value is higher, nothing happens. However, if the attacker had a higher roll, they get to choose a part the other bot must drop. Another action you can do is self-destruct. Let's say these are all in the same room and I self-destruct. I blow myself up, I deal 1 damage to all the other robots in the room. But then you have to start over from the beginning and, get new parts. Another action is pick up a part. So let's say I go up to this room, I can pick this part up and attach it to myself as an action. Now all the way up here is the boss room. And once you get up here, for example, here's Oxidus, the Rusted End. They have these different, it looks like this guy, you just got to get a 17 roll on anything. So once I get up here, I can attempt let's say a magic roll, not magic, a intelligence roll of 17. I get a +3 modifier roll, that's a fail, okay. If that happens, then nothing happens. However, if I did, then I would get to place a trash token in one of these to show that I completed it. Once all 5 of these are completed, then whoever dealt the final blow gets to choose one of these 3 boss loot cards. They get to take it, equip it for no cost, and scrap the others. Then it becomes a mad race to get out. Once you get out of the bottom with the boss part, you win. However, that's when other people start trying to attack you to try to steal the boss part from you. And you roll dice and do that. So the game is essentially just roll dice and that's it. So I'll show you some examples of some of the rooms, some of the items, but otherwise that's pretty much it combat wise. Just get to the top and yeah. So for example, the Gearcraft Automaton, if you fail this encounter, you take an extra damage when you do it. Hall of Turrets, it's just a 12 speed roll. Let's see, these are all pretty, this one, like I said, you can use energy to move 2 rooms. Some of the items here, the concussion grenade, scrap this, choose this or an adjacent room, move each other bot in the chosen room to an adjacent room of your choice. Tank treads, this bot is unaffected by any forced movement effects from other robots. Cold fusion reactor, when an enemy bot in the same or adjacent room rolls, you may pay an energy to reduce their roll by 3. Maintenance arm, once per turn if alone in a room, pick up twice. Spend an energy if alone in a room, remove a trash counter from the room. And you can also recharge. Recharge is how you get energy back. Here, after you make an intelligence roll, you may pay an energy to increase that roll by 3. So, yeah, there's different little stat boosts and abilities and different rooms, and the tower changes every time, and there's different bosses and boss loot. But that's pretty much the game. Just go into rooms, roll dice, pass the tests, fight each other, try to roll higher. That's the game.
So I've played games like this before where the concept is, okay, you draft your parts, put together like a ramshackle machine, and you try to get as far as you can without blowing up. And they sound fun in theory, but I often find what ends up happening instead is bad luck with drafting completely out of your control, constant lack of progression that makes it more frustrating than interesting. So you take that and apply what is essentially just rolling a die over and over again. Means this is essentially a repetitive game of luck that you're just trying to mitigate with stat boosts, and that is the whole game. This could be forgiven if the cards themselves were super fun and interesting, but very few of the cards to me felt particularly special. They're not bad, but I feel like in this game, if it's like this wacky sort of like, all right, robots run up there, they should be like super fun. And instead they're okay. They're like average at best. It's also kind of a hassle having to add up the individual stats every time. There's not really like a counters or tracks for that. If this were a co-op game, I could see it being kind of fun if you're trying to help each other overcome skill tests. But instead, because it's competitive, you're just rolling a dice over and over again and hoping you have high enough numbers, and if you don't, then fuck you. Combat should be fun in games, but in this game it's irritating because 1, it's so luck-based, and 2, it just slows down the game. The game is all about racing up to beat the boss, and if you're constantly just like, I hit you, you lose a part. Oh, I hit you, you lose a part. On top of bad rolls on the obstacles themselves, and you're just constantly hitting each other, the game moves at a glacial pace. It is so slow and so boring. It gets slightly more interesting when you're racing back down the tower, but not by much. And even then, it's still plagued with the same issues. It is repetitive, you're just doing the same stuff, there's so much out of your control, and honestly, it's kind of actively irritating to play. I cannot recommend this.